All right, while they finalise that, we'll get started. We're the Code for Australia team that's in Department of Treasury and Finance. There's three of us from Code for Australia, Elmer, Ken and myself, and we've also got Paul joining us as a domain expert, giving us a little bit more. He basically explains a lot of acronyms to us most of the time. I'm going to first hand it over to Elmer, who's going to take us through a little bit of the code and technical side of what we've been doing.
All right. Welcome. Okay, let's proceed with the code right away.
Assuming the demo got favorites.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, this week I was having technical difficulty because I lost my MacBook. It doesn't boot up anymore. So in that situation, what are you gonna do then as a developer? So it opens an avenue. Still good news. I managed to use Cloud9, which is, I don't know if you heard the term cloud. It's like a way for people to put their codes in the cloud or in an environment wherein you don't need your physical laptop. The actual physical laptop. You can develop in any laptop available for you. Like in the workspace that we have in the government side, so we can continue developing our codes and our products as well. So this is how. Yeah, okay. The current product that we have is this at the moment, and yeah. Yeah, at the moment it's now deployed at Heroku as well. So you can see it live at this address at dtf-genesisvisualopera.com. It doesn't really do much at the moment, but the amount of activity for you to have the idea, like the development that would yeah, that's the amount of the activity that we're doing at the background for you to have, like, the amount of work that you need to do in order to come up with that kind of website. So yeah, it uses a timestamp.
Can you explain what the lines and the lines are?
All the lines here and the dots are the folders and the files that we are changing over time. So that's the amount of activity that me and Ben are currently doing. So yeah. There are days that are active, there are days that we're still folding. So yeah, that's been moving.
During the day.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Sometimes
in the
night
office
time,
too.
so that's up again during the middle of the night. So yeah. So
Swap in. Unfortunately, we've all got our own technical dependencies, so we're doing a lot of laptop switching during this, which is also something to comment on. That, like, the three of us, we've got a Mac user, we've got a hardcore Linux user, and we've got a Windows user. You can't get easier than that, surely. And as an added bonus, we've also got DTF lockdown workstations. And one of the best things about C9IO, highly recommend you check it out, is that it works on the most locked down desktop in the world. So yeah, take it away. Thank you.
okay.
Yes, I'm Ken. I'm the UX research guy on the team. Just to clarify what the problem space is, we're looking at construction supplier reporting within Treasury and Finance. And that is not actually a simple task, because DTF, being a central agency, is managing construction for all the other agencies across the whole of the Victorian government. So we originally, this is like trying to, it took us a while to get a head around all the different systems and maps and channels. This is a map I've been producing to clarify what we're doing for our own team. We were originally brought in to look at this particular system, the construction supply register here, but through the expansion of our research and asking the question of, well, okay, we want to get construction supplier reporting on construction, that means contracts. Can you give us a list of all the contracts, please? And there was no one place where you can get a whole list of all the construction contracts which are going on across the whole of the Victorian government. So that really was the first, insight for us, is that really is the major problem. There is no definitive canonical list anywhere of all the construction projects going on across the state. The closest thing to it is a system called Vic Tenders, and that's where we've shifted our focus to, because that's the closest place where we can start getting some sort of list of construction contracts, which we can then link supply reporting to. The other key channels of this construction and procurement reporting, the yellow one, which is pre-qualified tenders above a certain amount threshold, and it's also the purple line, which is the actual, represents the supply reporting part of it. So there's contracts of different levels, and then supply reporting, and ideally we want to be able to reach across those different channels. Okay, and they're all lockdown systems, there's no open data. We have been given a key to CSR to get in there, which has been great. We're going to have to scrape big tenders to get the list of the contracts that we want to do. We did that in proof of concept. Okay, so users, what about the users? This is meant to be human-centered design. A major user really is the department, so it's almost like an intranet product in the end that we will be producing, because it's for departments to use rather than the general public. But because we've had a lot of trouble getting access to external departments, to the key people we need to, we've got them locked in finally now, but it's been hard to get to lock them in. For the first for the first 6 weeks, we'll be focusing on just the general public and the interested public, just to get started in getting something up and running for what they might want. And the problem statement we came up for those particular users is, I want to see where my government's construction money is going. And that's the problem we started from in the previous sprint. And this is just a example of one of the general sort of user tests. Well, really not really user tests, but a research, some UX research I did, asking a random member in the Code for Australia offices to please show me what you would do to find information on Victorian government construction. So hopefully you'll get sound in this. I'm not sure if it's going to work. If it's not, I'll just talk through it.
We fixed it last time.
Okay, how much money it's spent? Okay. Victorian government or the?
Doesn't go very long.
So I think that's what I would probably search for. If I'm not looking after a particular year. So there isn't like an article that I can just read. That would typically be what I would open if it came up in the search results. So I guess I'd have to go through and look at like a budget report or anything. But since I've got a financial background, I might not necessarily find that annoying. So this one looks promising. everything's just not relevant to what I'm after really, so I might go for the overview.
Okay, I want to end it there because what he was hovering his mouse over in the middle of the screen was exactly what he was after, which was the state capital program. But the average member of the public doesn't think state capital program when they're thinking construction. Yeah. And that really, I can tell you that, but it just really sort of punches the point home when you actually see someone do that was right in front of him. And it took him to a document of the budget overview, which is a PDF document, not really a website document, which again doesn't really have the information that he was after. That information is available. It's in another budget paper called Budget Paper Number 4, the Capital Works Program, again another PDF. It is available, that sort of information, but it's not very accessible. It's not user-friendly to your average user. Let me just go back. So in looking at how you might present stuff like that a bit better, I did some card testing where you get, some people might be aware of this sort of technique, where you get people to order things in the order that makes sense to them, rearranging words or potential drop-down lists, and then using in the intuitive language that they would use in the order that makes sense to them. So you use that to validate what sort of things, labels, and functionality put on a particular interface. We've been doing some of that. Some of you might have experienced me accosting you to do that, and that has been put together from paper prototyping and card sorting into an online quick prototype. Now this is just to test and to demonstrate and to think about, but this would possibly be a homepage of a particular portal we're landing on. We've got notes there, but then the state capital program and the sort of information that he was possibly after. It was taken from different places, different PDFs, as well as from different places in the website. They're the key bits of information. They are available, but just put on one page. That could be there for someone like that. But then, assuming, and this prototype assumes that we could scrape a list of contracts from big tenders, which we have. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. From those user testings of what the functionality of that interface would have, this is possibly what it would look like in terms of sorting that list of contracts. So that's just to show, and of course at the bottom there is a downloadable list of data, open data, hopefully, which someone else can then use too. And that's probably in a way the most crucial for users further down the track.
Yes. So I was going to do a little spiel on this Dwight quote. He's a smart guy, but forget him. There's better things to talk about. This is our data. And I don't just mean that as DTF, because I'm not DTF. And I don't mean it as Code for Australia, because I'm not Code for Australia for long. And I don't even mean it as Melbourneian, because Sydney's fine, there's nothing wrong with it. Or from Asia Pacific or anything. But it really is my firm belief that it is every human's right to know what the products of this earth are being used to create. So, I see this as the people's data, and I feel like it's being mismanaged by the government. So, why do I think that? Let's have a look at the Tenders Vic side, which we were talking about. So, this is Tenders Vic here. We've got a list of departments. In our experience with talking to people, as far as the general public goes, no one cares what department or even what level of government is spending the money. They just care that their money is being spent, that it's in their area, and that they want to say. But let's assume let's pick one. Who do we want to pick on? Let's pick on Sanitex. I know this is a good one. So let's just have a look at that CTX 1762. Has everyone got that memorized? And let's just refresh the page, and let's try and find that number. Oh, it's down the bottom of the list now. Let's refresh the page again. Oh, now it's back at the top. And this is frustrating if you're expecting a request to a single address to return you a single piece of data. This breaks a lot of software that analyzes web pages. This breaks the easy version of web scraping as well. But we'll get to that later. Just to confuse the issue a little bit though, I won't bother demonstrating it, but some of the lists shuffle around, some of them don't. Some of them have 3 entries and don't shuffle around. Some of them have 5 entries and they shuffle around. Sometimes there's 7 pages and it may be 5 refreshes until you get that first data back again. So if you're trying to follow links that you knew were there a second ago, they're probably not there anymore. So that's a little frustrating. But let's go back to Centertext and pick on them a little bit more. Let's have a look at the source code for this. And we'll search for that project, assuming it's in there. Yay, it is. And so this, there's a headline, there's a value, there's like, I think roughly about there, like that's a chunk of contract data. So who reckons they can parse that in Excel? I reckon I can, but I'm me. Let's have a look at the website Elma was showing you before. Ignore this bit for a second. So let's have a look at our list of contracts. You can see it's not vastly different to the current tenders Vic. I'd argue it's a little bit cleaner. And let's view the page source there. And who reckons that's one contract? Oh, that's a demonstration contract. There's one contract. Who reckons they can parse that in Excel? Yeah. So this is the kind of access we want to give people, something they can use with tooling that they know. Okay, so if we've got time, I also wanted to cover a couple of collaborative toolings that we did. Elma showed you Gorse before. That's only possible because we're logging every incremental tiny change we make. Every time we change something, we log it. That gives us a great view into our history, what we've been doing, who's been working where, that sort of thing. We've set up analytics on our blog. We haven't set it up on the prototype yet, but that's our next one of our upcoming steps. But what I wanted to talk about was Etherpad, really. This is a great little collaborative tool. So this is my brilliant success story. The City of KC budget. We found out about 3 days before it happened that the City of KC had released their budget, were accepting submissions and recommendations on their budget. And a group I helped organise put together a submission in that 3 days. And the way it happened was I opened up an Etherpad and say we wanted to start this again. All we need is this magical little address at the start. Paste it in and say DTF rocks. And thanks to Wikimedia Foundation, the Wikipedia guys, we'll get a free document there, just text, but text is fun to work with if you know what you're doing. And multiple people can work on the document at the same time. So while that's loading, you get a little who else is in the document. We all get different colors for our output. And so all I did was put a few major titles of the topics we wanted to cover. I went to sleep and I woke up the next day and the members of our group had filled, I think it was about 8 pages after I put it in a Word document of stats and numbers and savings that could be made and suggestions and addressing particular points in the budget. So this is just zero cost, zero setup, no one has to log in, no one has to do anything. This only works if you're working in the open. if you're trying to do something secretly, anyone can view these because they've just got to know the address. But if you're collaborating on something with people that you may have never met, and it's something that's public, this can be an excellent tool to get really quick traction. And the last thing I'll talk about, I don't know about a slide for it, no. So the last one I'll talk about is scoping. So scoping is my kind of thing. And this is a really good example of how it can be done. So planning alerts takes council data that we scrape individually from each council's webpage and consolidates it so that you can say, I want to know everything that happens within 20 k's of my house. I don't care what council it's in. And most people don't care what council stuff is in, just whether they walk past it or whether they have to interact with it every day. So I wrote this scraper for, which one's it? South Gippsland. And you can see, oh, I'm not logged in, but if I was, there'd be a run this now button here. We won't need that. I've put a bit of instruction on how to install and run this thing. And let's have a look. We can also see what happened the last time it was run. So we can see the server setting up all the software, and then we see the records. And it's saying it's skipping them because it already knows about these announcements. But if it found something new, it would have saved it. We can see that some guys downloaded this data 3 times. So someone's actually using this data. I'm not sure what for. Could be nefarious. And again, download as CSV, download as a database, or access it as an API. So all of this data can be hooked into current web-enabled projects. There's the data there, gives you a few stats, and here's the history. So this one's particularly interesting because nothing's changed in the database for a while. No, there's one record added to the database when it ran about 4 days ago. And you can see about a week ago, it was not running well. There were errors every time it ran. There's a version in here that thinks, there it is, thinks it's scraped 100 pages. There aren't 100 pages on the website. I don't know what, but this all started, the council decided to redesign their website roughly about then. And I'd been busy with Code for Australia stuff and hadn't gotten around to working on it. And it turns out this guy, who isn't the guy who downloaded the data, decided he'd fix it. So he sent me a pull request. It still took me a few days to get around to testing it and pulling the code. But you can see this guy is actually kicking my butt because he's got nearly 40 scrapers. I've got like 5 or 6. So, and yeah, he's just come along and helped out mine. And you can see, I can see one of his scrapers is erroring. So, you know, if I was so inclined, I could go in and pay back the favour and try and debug what the council did to ruin his scraper. So that's probably enough about scraping. So we talked about that. Cool, yeah. Oh, where to next? Yes, so the idea next is to tie the 2 ideas together. We've got a public list of contracts, and we've got an idea for what needs to be done to improve the reporting. And now with that total list, we can get metrics on are we succeeding. At the moment, if we had 30 reports last year and 60 reports this year, if the number of contracts tripled, we've actually lost reporting. So now we can actually be aware of that next year and compare useful metrics. So I think that was our last slide. I forgot to mention at the start that we've got a fancy little Google Q&A thing. So if you want us to put up your picture while you ask your question, feel free to use that. And if not, does anyone have any questions? Let's see. Nope, just my test question. Okay. Anyone have any questions? Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the beginning of the presentation around the process or the purpose of the construction contracts project.
Yep.
But given a lot of the stuff is, as you say, there already,
Yep.
clearly you're trying to solve an end user discovery issue.
Yep.
what about going further upstream to say, well, if this document is a public record, what can you do to make those documents more discoverable at the source and really figure the challenge there?
That would be great, and we've had now more than two meetings with the maintainers of the system, and our impression is they are happy with it and see no problem. So they don't see people wanting bulk downloads as their customer. And also, to some degree, it gives them leverage. Other departments have to come and personally ask them for a favour to get last year's data. To get last year's public data, they've got to ask for a special favour. I think that's pretty wrong. But they don't seem to. They're pretty happy with the way it's going.
Okay.
Have you suggested to them that it's wrong? Have you put that to them?
I've suggested things that they could do, such as just making access to the public part of the database public. And they promised me they'd bring it up in the next meeting, so I'll report back next month.
I'll just add something as the business around the room. So I'm quite sympathetic to where Ben's coming from. The other aspect of it is it's out, it's public, anyone can go in and look at it, it's just very cumbersome. So the DTF is not. Anyone can go to the and jump through certain hoops to find it, but yes, it is cumbersome. So there's acknowledgement that it's technically it's not easy. And I think the other aspect of it is well, what various challenges would take priority for business? Is it about just continuing to do contracting, or is it about improving the various systems that support that?
And there's also an issue with, for me personally, like I don't know what you do with 1 month's worth of contracting data, but that's what they consider it adequate to supply. For me, if you're looking at anything less than a year, you're not even taking it seriously, are you? But yeah, they consider 1 month historical data to be more than anyone would ever need. So but you find this with like the council scrapers that we scrape every day. We do that because they only announce them for a month. No one is in the habit of, I've published this data, this link should remain valid forever. That's sort of a, I think, restful kind of ideology thing, but if you've published data, add a URL, you should maintain that URL or leave an explanation of why you've removed that information. So there's lots of improvements to be made, but yeah, that's not really our job, and we're not going to look at all of the contracts on Tendervic either. Like we're interested in construction, and we're going to delete every other contract we happen to pick up. But as soon as I'm finished with this project, I'm going to fork the code, delete that check of which industry are we in, and put it up on planning alerts. So if you happen to live near Melbourne and there happens to be state construction in your area, why shouldn't you be notified of that as well?
Hey Ben,
yeah.
Can I just add to that? So for someone who's worked within council to get open data over the line, I know what you need to do, and I know that part of the issue and challenge is about just educating and people understanding why, the why. It's important. So within government, there's two things. There's obviously everyone is time poor because they've got lots of priorities. So where they can see the value, that's definitely where to go for, but also the capability. And even at City of Melbourne, we're working on how do we uplift the data maturity and the capability across, because data these days is everyone's business. It's not just the data, the data geeks, and I can say that because I'm one of them. But yeah, so I think that is where I think education, what's in it for people, and people really seeing if you have it out there and it's available and it's good quality, look what you can do. Look what the public can do. They can self-serve, they can create great apps, they can help government solve their problems. So I think that dialogue and increasing this dialogue in a very proactive, also understanding way helps to bridge that divide.
And I don't know if I've really covered that with the planning alerts, but that's a little bit of a stick and a carrot sort of effect as well. Like, if you want to publish your planning alerts, on planning alerts, they'll happily take it and host it for you for free forever. So, you know, there's a big carrot there, zero cost. They want to help you. And there's the stick of people like me who will go around and scrape your website if you don't do it, because it's just got to get done. And there's like a document, it's just a spreadsheet, a bit like the Etherpad I showed you. There's no security around it, ranking what councils people think should be done next. So, like the list originally got sorted by population. So the most populous councils all got done really quickly. So if you want to write one, get in quick, because we're up to regional areas. Yeah, so there's sort of a prioritization of getting as much done as possible, and that allows us to demonstrate, hey look, all of these people in the inner city can search for a radius area, not a council area, and they love it. Yeah, so I know a few people are subscribed to information that comes out of the scrapers I make, and they probably don't want the council's data, they want stuff in their area. Yeah, so, cool. All right, thanks everyone.